For decades, fossil fuels powered South Korea's economic miracle, propelling its rise as a technological powerhouse. The country is now at a crossroads. The harsh reality of global warming means South Korea must leave the old recipe for success behind and explore a new mix of energy to fuel its future growth. I'm Yun Suk. On this week's CNA Correspondent, I travel across South Korea to trace the past, present, and future of the country's energy footprint. And I'll find out why political hurdles could stand in the way of this energy transition. For nearly a century, South Korean coal miners in Taebaek City have taken countless trips through this long tunnel, then from hundreds of meters underground. In the dark, they dug a bright future for South Korea. But these underground trips will be among the last for these miners. Under the current government's plan, coal mining will be completely phased out by 2025. I want to take an inside look for myself, the industry that once powered South Korea's economic development before it passes into history. Cho Min-wook, who has worked as a miner for over 20 years, is my guide. Inside this mine, known as Taebaek Changsung Coal Mine, the air is still and cooler than the humid, hot summer weather outside. Taebaek is one of the last 3 coal mines operated by state-owned Korea Coal Corp. And when its scheduled closure comes in 2024, Mr. Cho and his fellow miners will have to find a new career elsewhere above ground.
Okay, we're getting into the elevator now. And we're going to go down about 800 meters underground. One of the coal mines here in Kansai.
Currently, the Taebaek mine still employs about 660 workers. This mine was opened around 1936, when Korea was under Japanese rule, an indication of its long history that from the bottom of the shaft, we have to travel further. And then through these steep steps. It's in these narrow spaces that coal, which still supplies about 30% of South Korea's energy needs, is extracted. But despite the miners' dedication and hard work, it's been decided that coal, being the most polluting fossil fuel, has no place in the net zero future that the South Korean government envisions.
Now, apart from the fact that the South Korean government wants to become net zero by 2050, these miners say coal mining is dark, dirty, and dangerous, something that nobody wants to do here in South Korea.
In fact, coal mining in South Korea has been on the decline since as early as the 1970s. The coal, or more precisely the coal briquettes that are being extracted here, are used mainly by South Korea's low-income households as a main energy source.
You see this? This is all the coal that's mined from here. And this is the kind of coal that Koreans use at home and also in restaurants to cook their barbecue.
The process of digging and blasting continues for the next few hours until it's lunchtime. Okay, usually he says that the miners will walk all the way here, but he's taking us on this ride where we're going to the resting area so that we can have lunch. This is the miners' resting area, also their kitchen. Look at this. Where they earlier left their packed lunches, hung up high enough so the rats won't get to them.
그러니까 휴가예요, 여름 휴가. 이 시간이 밥 먹고 이렇게 아무 탈 없이 일 잘 돼가고 있으면 좀 편하죠, 마음이. 근데 또 일이 잘 안 풀리고 뭐 사람 다치고 하면 그때는 막 퇴근하기가 싫고 밖에 나가기가 싫고. 지금처럼 기차 같은 그 차에 이렇게 압착해갖고 뭐 사망 재해도 있었고. 이 기차 이게 되게 그렇고 뭐 발파를 약을 이렇게 하고 있는데 다른 사람이 막 돌려갖고 이렇게 그런 발파재해도 있었어. 탄캐다가 탄이 확 밀려갖고 저기 뭐나 그렇게 해서 돌아가신 분들도 많고 뭐. 그 우리가 타고 내려오던 엘리베이터도 한번 사고가 나갖고 줄이 풀리면서 또 그래서 또 순직하신 분들도 있고.
Mr. Cho, who was born and raised in Tebek, says miners have mixed feelings about the mine closing down soon.
그래서 그 말씀을 저한테 던지는 게 제일 힘들다니까. 24년 이후로 뭐 할 건지. 고액이라서 저도 잘 모르겠어요. 뭘 어떻게 하고 있을지 지금. 그래서 제가 답답해요. 뭘 하고 있을지 모르기 때문에. 뭐 다들 얘기를 해. 뭐 서울로 와야지 이렇게 얘기하는데 그 말씀 자체도 저한테 스트레스더라고. 가서 뭐 할 거예요, 나도 또. 길도 모르는데. 뭐 또 이래 얘기하면 바보 같은 소리 한다 할 거고. 뭐 어디 가서 얘기를 못 하겠어요, 이 얘기도.
And we had to leave it at that, as he had to go back to work. This time, deeper into the tunnel, closer to the Earth's core. At about 3 in the afternoon, it's time to call it a day.
우리가 이제 나오면 또 을방 작업자들이 또 들어가게 돼 있다고. 예전에는 이 석탄이 굉장히 필요했을 때는 3교대를 했죠, 3교대. 지금 주 5일제이기 때문에 이틀을 쉬지만 전에는 한 달에 뭐 한두 공수밖에 이제 공유가 안 나가고.
As a father of 2 daughters, he is glad he was able to bring food on the table, though his future is unclear now. Tebek City in the northern part of South Korea used to be famous as the miner city for decades. News that the government is planning to completely phase out coal mining by 2025 is worrying many of the residents in the sparsely populated rural area who relies heavily on coal mining for their livelihoods. For Tebek City, the coal industry accounts for 25% of its income. It had tried and failed to turn some of the closed mines into tourist attractions. But environmentalists say the coal mines have to go, whether they produce coal briquettes or import anthracite, which is hard coal, the mineral's purest form. Gi was born in Samcheok City in Gangwon Province, once the mining capital of South Korea. The emeritus professor of Gangwon University has lived all his life here. Ever since the government announced a plan to build a thermal power plant near the Mengbang Beach in his hometown, he has been holding protest rallies against the plant. The Mengbang Beach, according to Professor Song and other environmentalists, is already under threat even without the thermal power plant. A government study in 2020 showed the beach had been shrinking since 2005. They said with the thermal power plant project, it could eventually disappear.
하필이면 석탄화로 발전소를 왜 이렇게 맹방 해변 옆에 짓느냐는 거예요. 이런 맹방 해변 같은 이런 해변은 우리나라에 그야말로 몇 개 없는 아주 국보급 천연 기념물로 지정해야 될 해변이거든요. 이게 항만 공사를 하게 되면 그 해변은 무조건 망가지게 돼 있어요. 뭐 공사를 아무리 잘해도 그거와 무관하게 해변은 침식되고.
And it has gotten worse, he says, due to the construction of a floating dock designed to supply coal to a nearby power plant.
해안선이 내륙으로다 엄청 많이 들어왔어요. 이게 좁아진 거예요. 그전에는 이렇게 계단식으로 돼 있지 않고 평평하게 해서 저기까지 다 모래가 있었던 거예요. 그런데 이제 저 방파제를 막으면서 이 해류가 변해가지고 지금 이렇게 깎아나가잖아요. 물이 이제 파도가 고파랑이 오게 되면 여기를 깎아요.
Efforts to save the Mingbang beach gained international prominence last year when South Korean boy band BTS chose the beach as the photo shoot location for their mega hit Butter album. Last summer, it attracted thousands more visitors compared to other beaches in Gangwon province, thanks to this. Slowly, coal mining cities like Taebaek and Samcheok have started to shift to renewable energy. This, as the South Korean government wants to increase the share of renewable energy sources to about 20% by 2030 and to about 30 to 35% by 2040. In the southeastern city of Ulsan, long known as a major shipbuilding and petrochemical hub, a hydrogen-powered future is taking shape. There are only 2 hydrogen-fueled vessels across South Korea, and both of them are here in the industrial city of Ulsan. Both capable of sailing up to 8 hours on a 40-minute charge. Last year, the city, together with the Ministry of SMEs and Startups, set sail a project to commercialize these 2 fuel cell-powered ships and set up the country's only hydrogen charging station to these boats. It's a step forward from these hydrogen charging stations for vehicles. Today, there are more than 2,400 fuel cell cars on the road in the city, with about 11 charging stations. Users say they're so far happy with the results, mainly because of lower costs, especially now when gas prices have soared due to the war in Ukraine.
저 같은 경우는 좀 많이 다니는 편인데 그게 일반 이제 지금 휘발유나 경유 같은 거 넣으면 한 5, 60만 원 들어가는데 지금 이거 20만 원 안 들어가거든요.
Taxi driver Cho Kum-yoon is also convinced that hydrogen taxis are much better than those run on LPG.
전에 LPG보다는 가격도 싸고 또는 한번 완충했을 때 키로수도 많고 한 600km 나와요. 한번 충전하면은 하루에 한 10시간 이상 일을 하게 되면은 한 2, 3일에 한 번씩 그렇게 열 정도죠.
South Korea's industrial conglomerates like Hyundai Heavy have also jumped on the hydrogen bandwagon to build fuel cells for ships.
수소 사회는 이제 저희 대한민국뿐만 아니라 전 세계가 이제 추구하는 방향이고요. 거기에 맞춰서 특히 대한민국은 수소 사회를 앞당기기 위해 노력을 하고 있습니다. 수소 사회가 됐건 암모니아 사회가 됐건 저희는 준비해서 미래에 대비하고자 합니다.
But a hydrogen-powered world, however promising it may sound, remains an untested future. South Korea, without coal, will need other sources to meet its energy needs and net zero ambition. And the role of nuclear power has been a big sticking point. The mood at this nuclear power plant compound in the coastal county of Ulsan, about 330 kilometers southeast of Seoul, is very different today. Only less than a year ago, morale was low, and there wasn't much activity here after former President Moon Jae-in declared that the country's 24 nuclear reactors would eventually be retired. And he had no plans to build new ones. But current President Yun Suk is determined to reverse all of that, as he believes South Korea needs to embrace nuclear energy. One of President Yoon's first stops with his ministers since taking office in May was at nuclear-related facilities, bringing with him a promise that the government will pump nearly $100 million to expand the country's nuclear power facilities, including the construction of the Shinhanul No. 3 and 4 nuclear reactors. The plan is to also extend the lifespan of 10 existing nuclear power stations, even after their scheduled closure in 2030. By doing that, President Yoon wants to meet about 30 to 35% of South Korea's energy needs using nuclear power by 2030, up from 27% in 2021. 73-year-old Lee In-gyun remembers rallying at the site together with other residents against nuclear reactors coming into the county in the 1970s.
심지어는 그 울진 국민 전체가 이 도로를 막아가지고 유조차를 이 불태운다고 할 정도로 많은 그 우리 젊은 층들이 원전에 대한 이해도가 부족하니까 그렇게 했었는데, 그것은 그동안에 원전이 안전하게 이 지역 주민들이 안전하게 관리되고 운영되고 있다는 것을 이젠 체득을 했기 때문입니다.
He and other residents now believe having them will help the local economy. But he is concerned about how the spent nuclear waste is being disposed of, an urgent and controversial issue here in South Korea.
그래서 저희들도 신한울 3, 4호기 조기 착공에 대해서는 좋은 기대를 가지고 있지만은 향후 10년 이후에는 고준위 폐기물이 적체가 돼 가지고 이 저장할 수 있는 장소가 없어진다는 얘기예요. 그랬을 때 과연 어떻게 할 것인가, 이런 부분에 대해서는 우려는 가지고 있습니다.
Currently, spent nuclear fuel is temporarily stored at where nuclear power plants are located. But starting from 2031, they will slowly reach their temporary storage capacity. Sooner or later, they will have to be moved. But the question is, where to? Chung Dong-wook, a professor at Chungang University, thinks they should go underground.
And that's right. Spent fuel, it has a very high level of radiation, and it's very dangerous and it's very risky. So that we like to put it in the underground. If we put the spent fuel in the 500 meters underground, we can separate the danger from the spent fuel from our biosphere.
Driving along the shore of this beach in Ponggil Village, Gyeonggi City, people are enjoying their summer vacation. But not too far from here is a nuclear power plant and also a nuclear waste facility for low to medium level radioactive waste. CNA was given rare access inside the nuclear waste facility that went into operation in 2015. From the inside, it's hard to tell this place is the nuclear waste facility. But it receives, inspects, and disposes waste from factories, hospitals, and nuclear power plants. Now, this is the only disposal facility in South Korea for all the nuclear waste. Currently, about 25% of it is full, and officials here say that they have the capacity to run this for the next 60 years. This is a silo where the disposed nuclear waste is stored. and there are 6 of them at this facility, each with a diameter of about 24 meters. This truck carries the safer nuclear waste and not the spent nuclear fuels. Inside each of the concrete disposal containers are drums with different types of nuclear waste. The container is designed to keep the waste for 300 years.
콘크리트 용기에 16개씩 집어넣어서 이 처분 용기를 만들면 이 처분 용기를 전용 차량으로 아까 보신 동굴처럼 운반을 해서 이런 것들을 각각 사일로에 처분을 지하 동굴에 6개 사일로에 이런 거를 10만 드럼 처분을 하게 됩니다.
As the debate over radioactive waste management goes on, political uncertainties will continue to plague South Korea's energy policy. While President Yoon believes nuclear power plants are the solution to the country's energy needs, under the country's constitution, he can only serve one 5-year term. And his pro-nuclear power policy could again be reversed by his successor when he leaves office, just like what he did to President Moon's plans to phase out nuclear power.
If energy policy changed in every 5 years, then nobody would like to invest in the energy sectors. It's a nightmare if the policy changed 5 years later again. Yeah, it's going to be a nightmare. Yeah.
The coal mines producing briquettes that have served generations of South Koreans will soon be history. And as South Korea experiments with a hydrogen-fueled future, these nuclear power plants will be running at full capacity at least for the next 5 years while President Yoon remains in office. The recent extreme flooding in capital Seoul after the heaviest rainfall in more than 115 years has prompted many to rethink the country's approach to climate change. To secure its future, the country must overcome political differences and settle on a long-term solution to its energy dilemma.